Hey guys, thanks for joining us for this 86th episode in Season 2 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. Special guests in this episode include real-life lawyer who was portrayed by Jodie Foster in the Mauritanian. Nancy Hollander will be our guest. We'll also visit with Fortune 500 business leader turned life coach and author Lyndsay Toensing. We'll talk about the book, The Beautiful Unbecoming, The Ultimate Guide to Life After Spiritual Awakening. Of course, if you would, please take the time to subscribe, comment, leave some feedback, check out the shop, and of course, share with your friends. Now, I don't know if this technically counts as animal cruelty, but maybe it should. A woman in Texas went to a zoo in El Paso over the weekend, climbed into a monkey enclosure, and started feeding them flaming hot Cheetos. Now, they were spider monkeys, which aren't huge, but they can still do a lot of damage if they want to. And obviously, Cheetos aren't part of their normal diet. Now, luckily, the woman wasn't hurt, and the monkeys will probably be okay. A zookeeper said that the flamin' hot Cheetos could cause stomach issues and bowel disruptions, though, so I guess kind of the same as in humans. Now, the director of the zoo called it stupid and said they definitely plan to press charges. They also have to install a higher fence now to make sure no one else tries it. Now, last I checked, police hadn't released the woman's name yet, but her boss did because she's already been fired over it. Now, they recognized her from a video someone posted online. Her name is Lucy Ray, and she was working at a law firm as a litigation assistant. We've spoken about the movie The Mauritanian before, and today we've got the real-life attorney who was played by Jodie Foster in The Mauritanian, Nancy Hollander. And first off, Nancy, I sure appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Cameron. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and the other folks in Oklahoma.
And Nancy, for you, you've been a part of so many different big cases over the years. What is it so much about this case that was so fitting to be on the big screen?
This case is unique in many ways because Guantanamo is unique in its true and pretty horrible ways. And Mohamedou was someone who was there for 15 years, never charged with any crime, an innocent man. And it really is inspiring how he fought all those years for freedom and battled for it. And, you know, he proves that you can't lock up the human spirit. He's always fighting for what's good. And it's a movie about that. It's a movie about how you withstand this. It's not a political movie. It's not a torture movie. It's a movie about being somewhere for a long time, meeting people and demanding that your rights be upheld.
And for you, Nancy, how did being a part of this case, how did that maybe alter the way you see things and maybe you see the low times that you've gone through in your life as well as a result?
Well, I do see them, and I talk about them with my clients. You know, we get to know each other. But Mohamedou was unique in that sense because I don't get a chance to get to know clients as well, most of them as I've gotten to know him, because I would go to Guantanamo, fly down there, get to the camp on Tuesday and have 2 or 3 full days there before the plane went back. And so we sat and talked about everything because there were years when nothing was happening. He won the habeas case in 2010, and yet he was there, and we continued to fight, me and Terry and Hina Shamsi from the ACLU, until 2016. And so there were years in there where none of us knew whether he'd ever get out.
Now, Nancy, what was your original thought whenever you were approached that Jodie Foster was going to be playing you? I mean, how taken back were you by that?
I was taken all the way back to the floor. I could not believe that Jodie Foster was going to play me. And it's one of the most exciting things that's ever happened to me in my life. frankly.
And what's it like to watch on the screen as something that you've lived through, to see the way it's been put on the screen, the roles that have been played? And did it bring out maybe some emotions that you'd forgotten about before?
It did bring out a lot. The first couple of times I watched it, I cried, and I just kept watching it over and over again. It was not quite in the final version when I first saw it, but I watched it, and then I watched it again, and then I came back in and watched it again, and talked to Terry, and talked to Mohamedou, talked to Stu, and just, I cried. I just cried at the beginning.
And as you see all of the things that are going wrong in the justice system, but to see it in finality, like in the Mauritanian, come around the way we see that things should go, do you ever have a hard time when you're losing heart in maybe what the justice system is really doing for us?
Well, sure. The justice system is not working for many people, and we need to keep pushing so that it works for all of us. And of course, we need to help people in other parts of the world do the same thing. But yes, I get disheartened and depressed and discouraged just like anyone else. But something about the need to get this client through this is what keeps me going.
That's right. And again, The Mauritanian is now available on Blu-ray, DVD, digital, all the downloads, all of that as well. And I always want to make sure, and Nancy, make sure and let folks know if they would like to find more information about the movie or anything you've got going social media-wise as well.
Yes, they can find me. They'll find me on Facebook or Twitter. I'm not hard to find.
That's awesome. Well, Nancy, it has truly been a privilege to have the chance to visit with you. I've enjoyed the movie, and hopefully you have a great rest of your week as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Cameron. You take care.
Now, this number might not be that far off, but only because our bodies are good at surviving, not us. Now, the average person thinks that if you drop them in the middle of nowhere, they could survive in the wilderness for 16 days. Again, that's survive, not survive comfortably. So as long as you can find water and not freeze to death, you might make it. The not freezing part might be tough though, because less than 1 in 5 Americans are confident they could start a fire if they only had flint. And without flint, it's probably closer to 0%. Only 1 in 7 think they'd be able to tell which plants and berries were edible and which ones might kill them. And 2/3 of us don't know what poison ivy looks like. The survey also found that a year after lockdowns and pandemic stress, 63% of us have a newfound appreciation for nature and being outdoors. Now, it seems like not that long ago we were all dropping full paychecks on toilet paper, but priorities are shifting as things open back up. For example, deodorant is flying off of the shelves now. But here are our favorite products that are selling. Walmart says it sold twice as many alarm clocks last month compared to a year ago. I guess people finally need them again. Now, here are a few more things we've been stocking up on in the last few weeks. Number 1, luggage, up 400% from last year. In general, all travel-related products are selling well right now. Number 2, teeth whitening strips and beauty products. They've been one of the biggest sellers in the past few months, according to Walmart. Number 3, sales of party supplies have more than doubled, and balloon sales are up 50%. Number 4, new clothing, especially warm weather clothes. They're up 60% from last year. Number 5, razors and other shaving-related products for both men and women. Our next guest on the podcast, a speaker and an author, going to talk about this book. I'm intrigued just by the title itself, The Beautiful Unbecoming, The Ultimate Guide to Life After Spiritual Awakening. We've got Lyndsay Toensing with us today. And first off, Lyndsay, I sure appreciate you taking some time to talk about the book and spiritual awakenings, if you will.
Yes, thank you so much, Cameron. I'm so excited to be here.
Now, tell us a little bit, when was the idea of the book? Was this something that they had to drag out of you, or was this something that you felt led? What was the leading behind the book, I should say?
Such a good question. Yeah, so it's funny because I signed up to do write a book program. I don't know. I want to say it was February of 2019, maybe. And so I submitted this book around finding your purpose. And that they accepted me into the program with that, but then they were like, nope, that's not actually the book you're going to write. I was like, what am I doing? And so my first book was a leadership book that I wrote while I was still in corporate America. And then when I left corporate America to fully step into transformational coaching and energy healing, I really had that. I need to write this book. I need to write about spiritual awakening, because when I went through it myself, nobody was talking about it that I knew anyway. When I talked to people about it, they were like, oh, you just need a vacation, or you just need to change jobs, or any of these other well-meaning things that really weren't helpful.
You probably got a lot of bless your hearts, didn't you?
Oh, so many. Yeah. And so it was really, I was called to do it. I was starting to see people who were coming to me for coaching that were going through this very same thing. As I started talking about it, more people were coming out of the woodwork to talk about it. And so I really was led that I needed to write this book to support other people.
Now, tell us the guide to life after spiritual awakening. I mean, this is kind of like, it's not so much how this is going back into the real world after an awakening is.
Yes. Yeah. So there's also a great question, because there are a lot of resources out there, if you search for them, that talk to you about how to go through a spiritual awakening or what that may look like. But people aren't talking about that transition back into real life. And so, through the spiritual awakening process, I talk about 6 different kind of stages, if you will, through spiritual awakening, just to ground people in it. There's like the people who are asleep, right? Those who are still kind of in that day-to-day drama. Life is happening to them, not for them. It's about survival. Then you go into striving, where you're kind of like realizing you have some control over your life. And so you're starting to reach for things and start taking responsibility. And then at about stage 3 is this questioning. And that's really where people start, who am I and why am I here? And what am I doing? What I'm doing? And then that seeking, then you go into that stage of, what is the truth, and what do I believe, and what is my purpose, and what do I want to be doing here? And then they kind of see how their beliefs are entangled with what society has told them, what their families, well-meaning people who love them, have impressioned upon them, conditioned them, programmed to be. And then you kind of go into that awake stage, which is, some people call it enlightenment, things like that. It's with this stage of like this questioning to seeking, where we blow up everything that we thought we believed to finally find out, what is it that I truly believe? What is it that I want to be contributing to the world? And then you try to look at your life and go, oh, goodness, that is not what I had in mind. And so then you try to transition. Like, you're going to work, and I'll tell this story real quick and then I'll move on. I was in a meeting. I was down in Mexico. At the time I was leading business strategy teams, and we had the VP and a bunch of people there, and they were, why don't we have this inventory? Why don't we have this? And out of nowhere, I just went, none of this matters. Because in my mind, I was like, what? Out of all the things happening in the world, we're worried about whether or not we have these socks in stock. Like, this does not make sense to me. And so part of me was like, none of this matters. And then I went, oh no, I'm going to get my butt fired if I start doing this. But also, I need to come up with a plan, because I am no longer in alignment with what I'm doing. And so this book really helps unravel the programming and the conditioning of who we are, who we were programmed to be, so we can figure out who we truly are, come into alignment with that, and then start to navigate life from that point of view, which is really, really hard. And you end up doing things like I did, have a weird outburst in the middle of a business meeting.
What do you think is the biggest misconception when somebody says spiritual awakening? I mean, we're not talking about having to be gone for months on end, sitting on top of a mountain and relying on nature. I mean, give our listeners a little idea when we say spiritual awakening, what we're talking about here as well.
So that's such a good question too, because you're right. So when I talk about spiritual awakening, I'm talking about the process of waking up from our lifelong conditioning and programming that essentially made you who you've become to this point. And so it's the beginning of the deconstruction of who you are now and how you're operating in the world. It's the path to your authentic self. It's the path to your true power and your gifts and your freedom. And yes, it's a connection to a power higher than yourself, whether you want to call that God, Spirit, Gus, Allah, Buddha, whatever you want to call it, right? It's something else, but it's so that you can live a life that's authentic, aligned, and alive for you. And that happens for some people. They do, if they have the resources, great, go up into a mountain, work with the monks, do your thing. Most of us are going through this in our day-to-day lives where we're waking up, and you may be driving to work and having just bouts of anxiety. You may not be able to sleep at night because you're like, none of this makes sense. I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. How did I end up on this path? I feel like this is not resonating with me anymore. But then you get into the guilt. Oh, good Lord, the guilt of I have responsibilities and kids. I can't blow up my life. I can't do these things. But there is a way to navigate it without blowing up your life, without going to the top of the mountain, and being able to integrate this in an, I'll say, simpler way, because it's not always easy.
It's not easy when you have to take inventory of your own life at any point.
Totally.
Now, what are maybe some of the lines that you've seen over the last year? Have you seen people taking more interest, or have you seen people maybe pushing away a little bit more as a result of everything else? You're like, I can't take one more thing.
Yeah, it's so interesting with the whole pandemic, with the civil unrest, with all of that going on. There seems to be an extreme, whether that's I'm extremely shutting down and playing the victim and I have no control over my life, or you have people being forced to wake up, because that's the other thing with the universe. I usually use the term universe. It whispers to you to start saying, hey, this isn't aligned. Hey, you're not on the right path. Hey, you're supposed to be doing something else. Hey, there's bigger, more magical things for you if you look the other way. But then if you're ignoring it, like I did for so many years, the universe finally just like shakes you and shakes you awake. And I think that's what's happening with the pandemic, with the civil unrest, is that people are being shocked into this spiritual awakening initiation. And so you're seeing people finally go, wait a minute, I'm not driving to work. I'm not spending as much time in traffic. I'm in the Seattle, Tacoma area. I used to commute 3 hours a day. Yeah. There's a lot of people who do that, right? Now I have more time. Now I'm also in this house with these people who I usually only spend a few hours a week with. And I've got many hours with them. And you're kind of forced to come face to face with what your life has become, whether or not you want to. And so there are a lot more people who are interested in the topic. There's a lot more people who are open to exploring, okay, then what does resonate with me? What does align with me? You have people who are more willing to go, oh my gosh, I have time for things now. What do I want to do with that time? What seems fun? What seems inspiring? What seems exciting, right? But then you also had on top of it, everybody's shut down. Everybody is, secluded, and we're all with our little pods of people. And that puts different restrictions where you can't go out. You're forced to go in. And that's really scary for a lot of people. And it was scary for me when I first started doing it too. So it's interesting that it's this past year and a half has been a collective forced wake up for people.
what has been maybe one of the biggest turnarounds that you've been able to see over this time? We've had to deal with so much and people's lives completely changing. Well, I'm a radio guy and talking to a video camera. I mean, come on. What are some of the big turnarounds that you've seen as well?
And that's just it. That's some of the things we're working with is technology. People are working, and yet they have all these technological blips, issues, whatever you want to call it. I think some of the turnarounds that we're seeing is the way that people are working. Obviously, a lot of us are working from home, and we're doing it through video. Right. You have people who they're trying to stay in touch. So you have more people who are doing happy hours and dinners and holidays via Zoom or other video thing. But I think because of that, people are really taking inventory of how they want to be connected. Because again, humans are we need people, we need touch, we need affection, we need love, we need to see people, we need to be with people. And it's not just seeing people, we need to be in other people's energy. And so people are being more selective and more intentional about how and where they're spending their time, which I think is a great thing. It's a great thing.
Now, how does that change as things open up and those time constraints come on our lives? I mean, how hard is it to keep a routine, keep awake, if you will, moving forward and not just get back into the same old rut?
What I think is going to happen is that you're going to have people who are in the process of awakening or who have gone through an awakening, whereas things are opening up, they're going to be forced to go into their old lives, the old normal. I hate using the new normal, so I'm not going to say it, but they're going to be going into their old lives, and they're going to be, again, kind of face to face with, oh, this doesn't resonate with me. This doesn't make sense. And so that's where the turmoil can come in. Well, I don't know what I want to do. The anxiety then comes from that. I don't know what I want to do. I just know I'm not happy. I don't know how to get happy. People don't talk about this. And then the questions of, am I having a midlife crisis? Am I going crazy? Am I, all the other things that can come from it, I think is what's going to happen next. Now, that's what I'm putting my money on.
Now, as an awakening, obviously, we hear voices. Every decision we have to make, you hear the voices. Is there a way to discern when it's the right and wrong? Because that's one of those we all had to deal with.
Yes. Oh, such a good question. So I talk about in The Beautiful Unbecoming the concept of ego, and not the ego like I'm the most amazing thing in the world ego. I'm talking about that voice that tells us, that's really well-meaning. It wants to keep us safe. The ego was developed many, many moons ago when we were trying to stay alive from, the saber-toothed tiger and the dinosaurs. It's like, don't go that way, you will die. So it's developed to keep us safe. And the way it keeps us safe is by keeping us stuck, small, and unseen. And it makes sure that it kept you alive yesterday. So do the same thing you did yesterday, today. The easiest way that I tell people, if it's, whether you want to call it your higher self, whether you want to call it your true self, your authentic self, essence, whatever you want to call it, to know that versus the ego is usually limiting, fear-based, and full of drama. And so if you hear things like, don't go that way, you will die, catastrophizing, the world will end, it's all the worst case scenarios. If that's the voice, that's ego. If it's more of a calm drop in, maybe you should explore environmental science. I'll just throw something out there. Maybe you should explore that. That is more of how it's actually coming from within, from you, versus the ego fear-based. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. And so I think that's been one of the most helpful tools for the people that I work with is if it's in drama, if it's fear-based, if it's limiting, that's ego. If it's expansive, if it's calm, that's your true self.
Now, how have the requests changed over the last, say, 6 months and the question that you've been getting? I mean, and how many of them have been responding like this?
Pretty much all of them. It's interesting because I would say about a year and a half ago, it was still around, I think I may want to change my career, or I'm looking for love, or I think I may want to change my relationship dynamic somehow. Now it's like, I'm unhappy. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And I think the biggest one is I don't know how to trust myself, because they have literally decades of operating one way. And now they know that way is not aligned with them. And so it's like, how do I trust myself? I've built this entire life this way and it's not working anymore. And so trust of self and fear of making the wrong decision, generally broadly, has been the biggest topic. And I actually, it's funny because I just wrote a blog post that I haven't put up because my website's being redone, but I just wrote a blog post about trust issues this weekend, because it's that important. It's that important. And it shows up in ways of either I don't know what to do, I don't want to make the wrong decision, I am stuck. For those who are very self-aware, they can say, I don't trust myself. But that's the few. That's not the majority of people. The majority of people just get stuck in the confusion, if you will.
And how hard is it? You hit something there, because that's one of the things I've always battled is that, yeah, I can do this, I can do this, but I'm liable to mess this up too. I mean, how much of a problem is that for people taking that step forward just by knowing how many times they've messed up back there?
Yeah, it's huge. And here's why. The other thing is I usually work with high achievers, mostly high achieving professionals, but sort of the type A people, they are the perfectionists, they are the hardworking, they will do anything and everything, work all hours of the day and the night just to make something perfect.
Right.
And so with those clients, I really work with them on experimentation. First, we take inventory of all the things that have worked for them in the past, where they trusted their gut and it worked out. And it can be something as simple as, I was driving home and for whatever reason, I decided to take a different route home and I totally missed a traffic accident. Mm-hmm. How crazy is that? That's your inner wisdom coming through to say, take a different route. That's a great example of trusting your own self. I think from there, after you kind of make that inventory of all the ways in which you have trusted yourself and it worked out, then you come to it from a place of curiosity. Okay, what was going on? How did it feel? What was I thinking? What was going on? So you can kind of tap back into what it felt when you listened to yourself and it worked out. You understand the cues from your own inner wisdom, if that makes sense. And then so next time when something comes up, tap in. Does it feel like my true self, my authentic self, my higher self, or does it feel like fear-based drama? Right. And then it's about experimenting. Try it, see what happens. And the other thing that I really push a lot, one of my, a client I was working with, he was like, how do I know that I'm doing this right? That was his thing. And I said, the only wrong way to do this is to not do it. There's no right or wrong. There's just learning. And that's really hard for people because we've been taught since we were itty bitty, there's right and wrong. There's just learning. And obviously, yes, there's exceptions. You don't want to go out and murder a bunch of people. That's not okay. That's right? Not okay.
No, not good.
Okay. Just so we're all clear.
Don't listen. Okay. That's a wrong voice. That's a wrong voice.
That's wrong. Right. Now, if you're like, should I take this job or this job? Either you're going to take the job and you're going to love it, or you're going to take the job and you're going to learn that it's not the right fit for you.
Right.
It's not about being right or wrong. And that goes with relationships. That goes with anything. It's all about learning, and coming from curiosity is going to help you grow and move through things so much faster. When we judge it, we're stuck with it. If we accept it, we allow it to move. And that's one of the other big lessons that I try to teach people, whether it's our emotions, our thoughts, situations. If we judge it, we're stuck with it. So what can we do to accept it, allow it to be here, and then move through it and take the nuggets that we are meant to get from that situation?
That's good stuff. Now, Lyndsay, if folks want to find more information about your speaking, about the book, and everything else you've got going social media wise, where's the best place for folks to find that information?
Thank you. So my website, lyndsaytoensing.com, it's launching again on June 1st. Up there, you'll have all the information to connect with me. You can even get a free e-copy of The Beautiful Unbecoming on the new website. So after June 1st. And then I'm on Lyndsay Toensing, at, like, what are all these handles? On IG, Instagram is Lyndsay Toensing. On Facebook, it's Lyndsay KRT. But website is probably the easiest, lyndsaytoensing.com.
Well, Lyndsay, it has been great to visit with you today. I truly appreciate you taking some time and visiting us from the lovely Northwest.
Yes, thank you so much, Cameron. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks again for joining us for this 86th episode in Season 2 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. If you ever have a comment, question, anything else you'd like to know, you can hit me up on the contact page at gqwithcam.com. You can also find me on all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at gqwithcam. If you'd like to help out in the funding for this podcast, you can visit the merch store. We've got hoodies, shirts, mugs, tumblers, stickers, and more at gqwithcam.com/shop. If you have a special guest idea, email me, gqwithcam@gmail.com. Well, thanks again to our good friend Brandon Allen for coming up with our theme music. We're going to let him play us out and hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday.